Hello, my name is Halion, and this is my guide to the trash and mini-bosses in the Ruby Sanctum encounter. This video was made as patch 3.3.5, and various aspects of the encounters could be subject to change in future patches. First, let's start with the trash pulls. There's only 2 trash pulls which are particularly worrisome in the Ruby Sanctum, but I'll briefly cover the abilities of all the trash mobs that you will encounter. The most worrisome trash comes in the form of 2 separate packs which patrol the back and consist of 2 invokers, 2 assaulters, and a commander each. As you can see here, the key to successfully dealing with these trash is to have one tank taunt the commander and pull it a decent distance away from the group. Bring down the commander first. The reason we pull the commander away is because he gives a buff to all of his allies, which will increase their damage and his. This, combined with his own mortal strike, means that if he is near his allies when he gives this buff, they will be too difficult to tank, and the raid will likely wipe. You will want your strongest tank on the other pack, as they will take in a lot more damage. Kill the invokers next. The invokers have an ability called Flame Wave, which needs to be interrupted if possible, as I'm currently pointing out, has a very visible cast animation. It does a decent amount of damage, and knocks back anyone within range of it when it goes off. This includes tanks, melee, and any ranged healers who happen to be standing too close. The assaulters have a cleave ability and a shockwave. This means that tanks will want to turn these around, and melee and ranged do not want to be in front of them. These are otherwise fairly harmless melee mobs, which is why they usually go down last. The final type of mob has its own pull. There's 2 pulls of 2 charge scale elites each on either side in the back. These mobs are tank and sping. The first boss that most groups deal with is Balthorus the Warborn. He's the boss to the left as you enter the Sanctum. The reason I suggest him first is because he provides a decent challenge to the group. This encounter will show you whether or not your tanks and heals are prepared, and whether or not your DPS can stop when told to. The most obvious ability that Balthorus has is called Clone. In 10-man, a clone will spawn at 50%. This is preceded by a cast which will knock everyone back and stun them for a few seconds. Because of this, positioning Balthorus is key. As you can see in this video, we have the first tank pull Balthorus to the root extending from the tree, with his back to it. Your other tank will want to join him there just before 50% to avoid the knockback as well. However, the reason you do not want your off tank to stand there the entire time is due to another ability called Blade Tempest. This is a whirlwind-like ability, except that it only happens as a cone in front of the caster. During this time, the tank will take quite a bit of damage. Tanks should pop cooldowns to this ability when possible, and heals will have to focus on keeping the tanks up. It is possible for Blade Tempest to happen just before 50%. If this happens, call off DPS, and wait until after begins casting to draw him into 50%, and make sure your off tank is in position to pick him up as soon as it ends. When your off tank does pick him up, have them move the clone as shown in this video. The other ability you need to watch for is called Enervating Brand. This ability will decrease healing by 2% for all nearby allies that have it, and it will spread to anyone within 12 yards of anyone afflicted with it. This ability stacks. This means that melee will want to be behind Balthorus and try to remain 12 yards from the tank at all times. If this is too difficult, any melee affected by the brand will have to run away from Balthorus when afflicted. It can only return when it falls off. Ranged and healers simply need to make sure that they're 12 yards away from the melee of the tank. After Balthorus splits, try to focus DPS on one of the clones. Usually on the one they've been focusing on, which should be targeted by the initial tank. When that clone dies, the other one will disappear. The next mini-boss is Saviana Reachfire, a drake on the right side of the Sanctum after entering. Like all dragons, she has a breath. I didn't notice a tail swipe or a thrash. She has a few abilities to note. First, she will enrage every once in a while. Have a rogue with anesthetic poison or a hunter with trinkle shot ready. If none of these are available, tanks will need to pop cooldowns, and healers will need to keep the raid up through the AoE. You may want to figure out some sort of tank slot for cooldowns if no hunter or rogue is available. Obviously, this fight is easiest if you make sure to bring a rogue or a hunter with you. Occasionally, Saviana will fly up into the air and out of range of the raid. At this point, your raid should group up in a tight pack. Ours didn't, and you'll see why that's a problem here. After flying up, Saviana will target 2 random raid members with Flame Beacon, and they will gain red arrows above their heads, similar to the ones seen in Jugosa. These raid members will need to run away from the group 10 yards and remain 10 yards from each other. After a few seconds, they will be hit with Conflagrate, which works much like Vile Gas on Festergut. It will disorientate them for several seconds and deal a hefty amount of damage. In addition, it will spread to anyone within 10 yards of them. It is possible for a tank to be hit with conflagrate. Should this happen, a tank not currently tanking will need to pick the boss up, as the conflag tank will still be under the effects of conflagrate when she flies back. As you can see here, one of our hunters was too close to the tank and conflagged him. The other tank didn't pick him up, so Halion went for the next highest aggro target, me. Aside from the air phase and the enrage, Halion is a simple and easy tanking speed. Coordinate grouping up to minimize the risk of flame beacon targets running around into a stray raid member, and you'll win. The final mini-boss is General Zerthrin, and he will not become accessible until the other 2 raid bosses are down. He has a few abilities to note. However, we'll start off by mentioning his positioning. Have your ranged and healers run to where Zerthrin is standing, and have the first tank taunt and pull him to the wall on the other side of his initial position. This will help you deal with the adds that I'll explain within just a minute. The biggest thing that tanks need to be aware of is the stacking debuff that General Zerthrin applies, which reduces armor. When it reaches 3 stacks, the other tank needs to taunt off Zerthrin and hold it until the first tank's stacks fall off. From that point on, the tanks will swap as soon as their own stacks of the debuff fall off. General Zerthrin also has a raid-wide fear that works much like Intimidating Shout. You will cower in place and be unable to move or do any other action for a few seconds. If your tanks aren't well prepared, you may want to use external cooldowns on them, or have a priest fear ward themselves in order to keep the tank up during the fear. In addition to all of these abilities, Zerthrin will spawn a set of 2 adds on a timer throughout the encounter. These adds will run up the entrance tunnels from where your raid came, on either side. The tank that is not currently tanking Zerthrin should pick these adds up. This can happen just before they need to taunt the boss, but it's really not a problem to have Zerthrin and 2 adds on you. The way that we dealt with the adds was to have ranged burn them down as soon as they spawn until Zerthrin dipped below roughly 700k health. You do want to kill the adds, as they cast an AoE blast, which will get out of hand quickly and wipe the raid if they build up. However, if a set of adds spawn as he's about to die, the tanks can simply hold 1 or 2 sets of adds while the raid finishes him off. Because the tanks have to deal with more than just the adds, it's possible that range may pull aggro. This isn't a major issue, and the healer should be able to keep the ranged up, even if they are being attacked. Just kill the adds quickly and resume DPS on Zerthrin, and you'll get him down. Once Zerthrin dies, a neat intro will occur in which Halion appears. Enjoy and good luck with Halion. You can find a great Halion Encounter video on TankSpot.com. Thanks for watching this video guide. Hopefully it will help you and your group tackle the Ruby Sanctum. Goodbye and good luck.